just picture this, Ed. You just invested $400,000. Now, I will say I was very happy that it covered my whole face. Do this, invest in this business. We all in franchising know how scary that can be for franchisees. But being there by their side really helped with the dynamic in that role. But it was still scary because now it was going to impact our revenue and profitability. But who would hire me? I'm just a mom. This is how I felt. You can reinvent yourself. You can change your direction. You can change your path. Just give me the stop if I'm telling too much. It says "Go be awesome" on the back, and then Stevens is black, and it has his name. Guess what it says on the back?
So, Angela Cote, welcome to the Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. It's early in the morning here compared to the time for you because I'm all the way overseas.
Yeah, across the pond, right?
Across the pond, but I this is probably a good thing because I'm more of a morning person. So if we were doing this interview later in the day, I'd probably be fumbling. Well, maybe no promises. I might still fumble my words. Let's just set the standards right now.
What time is it where you are?
So it is 8:14 a.m.
8:14 a.m. Yes, that's pretty early. And You're not in America, as I mistakenly thought before, right?
Yeah, that's so funny. I do get that a lot. I'm in Canada. I used to work with somebody who was from New Zealand. And anytime people would say, "Are you Australian?" he would say, "Oh, you Americans are all the same to us Canadians."
Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much mistake in my accent, though, really, is there?
It's pretty clear.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, Angela, I'm going to start the podcast by asking you the same question I ask everybody because I love to find out what people's first job is. So, Angela, what's your first job?
Oh, man. Well, my first job was when I was 5 years old, sitting at the back of the store that my dad had opened, which became a franchise and grew to almost 500 locations over the years. But I was that kid at the back of the store. But I guess officially when I first got paid for something, it was dressing up as Kelly Kabob at grand openings, running around in a big, shish kebab costume. I probably got paid like $1 an hour or something because I was probably 7 years old at that point. So that's my first job.
That's awesome. That must have been so hot though, walking around dressed in that all day long.
Yeah, well, you'll understand Celsius. So it would in the summer it could get up to like 35 degrees Celsius with humidity. Wow. So you're right. That you understand that for sure because that was definitely one of the concerns. Now I will say I was very happy that it covered my whole face and everything because it would have been so embarrassing because I was handing out samples to my friends. I didn't tell them it was me. I
was going to say, what was your kind of thoughts from behind the costume? Because I always wonder what people are thinking inside those things.
Just thinking I'm glad nobody knows it's me.
Cool.
But having fun all the way. Yeah.
So that's interesting though, because you started out in the family business from day one. So did you stay there, or where did your kind of career take you?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'll just give me the stop if I'm telling too much.
No, go for
stop it. Okay, so grew up with the company that my dad founded. It's called M&M Food Market, formerly M&M Meat Shops, very well known in Canada. And it grew to almost 500. We grew to almost 500 locations over the years. And so I always say I did everything from, as I said, dressing up as Kelly Kabob in my earliest days to working in our corporate store. Eventually, they threw me out into the field to work with franchisees, help them get up and running and go back and work on, building their business and compliance and that sort of thing. And just pausing right here for a minute, just picture this, Ed. You just invested $400,000, which is probably your life savings. You might have left a career to go, do this, invest in this business. We all in franchising know how scary that can be for franchisees. And the person that shows up to help you with getting your business up and running and then be successful is this 20-year-old female boss's daughter. So you can only imagine that time of my life, how much I got put through the ringer and learned about franchisee, franchisor relationships which feel free to, we can bring that back up in a little bit. But that was a highlight that I look back on now, a few years in the field. I was working for our area developer in Western Canada. And what was good about that was that the company, it was originated in near Toronto, so more on the east sort of central side of Canada. And that's where our head office was. So this was nice because it enabled me to go work for somebody else. Yes, it was still the family business, but to work under a different office and around all different people, and just moving away from home and being able to sort of spread my wings and grow a little. So those years were quite formative for me. That was in my early 20s. And then in 2000, my dad called me and he's like, "Hey, Ange." Yes, he has that gruff voice. "Hey, Ange. I've got James, our COO, on the phone here." And, "Oh, hey, James." And they got me on speakerphone and they said, "We're ready to put stores on Vancouver Island," which was the last place in Canada really to expand to.
Okay.
And we had held off because there was, it's an hour and 40-minute ferry ride from the mainland. And so there's shipping, there's more costs, and the market didn't quite look right. Like, it didn't look like M&M country, as we would have called it. So they were kind of concerned about whether it would be successful. And so the idea was, well, you go do it. You take the risk.
you
go be a franchise. Yeah. So you exactly be the guinea pig. But this is where my life took a big turn that I wasn't anticipating, because I'd gone to school for business. I had my business degree. I was doing this work in the field. And I, quite frankly, was fairly lost with what I was. I didn't know I was lost, but I didn't have a clear path, because in moving out west, as I would say, I realized how much I liked being out west and being away from home and just in a beautiful place, lots of mountains and ocean and great things.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, so it sort of took me off the path of where there was this possibility, would I maybe someday take over the company? And this just canceled all of that. And so then with this idea of moving to Vancouver Island, at the time my husband and I were engaged, thinking about starting, getting married, starting a family, and thought, you know what, Victoria is quite a beautiful place and would be a nice place to settle. And so we went for it. And side note, I don't know if you know, but Victoria is like the most British city of Canada. By the way.
I didn't know. Yeah. No.
Yeah, we have like the red double-decker buses, and
oh wow,
it's quaint, and it's got some feel from what I hear.
No wonder you wanted to be there with red double-decker buses, right?
Right.
Is your color.
Right, red. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we moved over to the island and we went for it. We invested in, we got our financing and we opened 3 stores in a year and a half. It was fast and exciting. And I'll tell you this, and I was like, is this going to be maybe I've got so many little stories that are going to come out here, and hopefully they're stories that are valuable and maybe inspiring to people. I don't know how this one's going to come across, but we were expecting that the market would be difficult, as I mentioned, and we doubled our projections in the first year with our first store.
Wow.
Second store followed suit. Third store followed suit. And I would love to sit here and say it's because we were so awesome and because I knew the brand and bled M&M, but we were actually just wrong, and the market was ready. And it's because it's also a retirement community. It's also known as the newlywed and the nearly dead. But people had moved from other places in Canada. And I guess this is the beauty of franchising, right? So people that had moved from Alberta and Ontario and Canada to the island and there are a lot of young retirees. So they were like, "Oh my gosh, M&M is here. We've been waiting for you." So we had lineups, and so it was really the value of the brand. It really, I'd love to say it was us. We just had to kind of keep it up.
That's so interesting, because I think there's a bit of a preconception sometimes with people thinking about franchise brand expanding, right? And they're going, well, why do I want them to expand more? It's just providing more competition for me, or, it's going to take the attention of the franchisor away from me and what I'm doing. But actually, that's a really great demonstration of how the brand can be so important for everybody involved, really.
You know what? I love that you just brought that up because I talk about this a lot with franchise whenever I'm around franchisees that do have a problem with, we don't want them to put another store in our market or another territory near us. And we went through that as franchisees. When we had our 3 stores, the company was ready, this Western office was ready to open another store that would affect our sales. And now I was fortunate to have a lot of the franchisor side in me to understand the value of that, but it was still scary because now it was going to impact our revenue and profitability. And we were offered that store and we were like, no, actually we're good with 3. We thought we might go 4 or 5 stores, but we were pretty happy with 3. We wanted to start having kids. It did impact us, but over time, so our sales, it made an initial impact, but over time our sales went up because the same concept. More people in our actual market knew about us, and they would cross shop. They were at different stores. So, yeah, I try to help people understand the value, and then there's also more royalties going into the home office to support us. There's more brand fund added, so there's a lot of benefits, but a little short-term pain sometimes.
Yes, it's interesting. It reminds me now of a conversation I had with one of the franchisors I do some work with, and they said to me, have a look at this client testimonial and see if you can do something with the video. So I've listened to it, and the guy was saying, the service is fantastic. I'm so happy. I can't wait for them to open up more stores so I can recommend my friends and family who need this service to use them. And yeah, I think it happens more often than you think, right? It doesn't have to be the person moving to a retirement town or location, right? It could just be that those recommendations stretch even further afield. So, massive value there. So I want to go back to that time when you were in your early 20s and supporting these individuals who've invested their life savings. So I can imagine for you that's a big challenge, but it's probably a bit of a challenge for the franchisors as well. And I don't know, in a lot of franchise brands, the marketing teams are typically younger than the people that are investing in the brand. So what was that dynamic like? What do you feel it was like for the franchisees interacting with people that perhaps weren't as senior as them in their previous roles in as CEOs or directors or whatever they were before joining?
Yeah, such an important question. And what the best way for me to describe this is when I was a franchisee, I had this happen where I had, the first, we called them field consultants back then, now more commonly known as like a franchise business coach, or at my company, we call them field coaches. But the first one that came in, I had trained. So not only were they maybe younger than me or around my age, but they were coming in and like, I knew more than them at that point. So it was, and when I was that person, that 20-year-old female boss's daughter in that role, it was definitely difficult. I got a lot of eye rolls. But I think what worked, and I talk a lot about this when it comes to successful field coaching, is that I was lucky that I had, of course, the passion for the brand and the knowledge of the brand. That I had that part, and I did not have the coaching experience, the business experience that having taken a risk like that. But what I did have is probably the right personality traits, which is why my dad and the COO probably saw that I could probably go do this. So I think it's important. That's just a key takeaway for anybody that's listening, whether you're on the franchisee side, becoming a franchisee, looking at what kind of people are in the field and what are their traits, are they good at it? Or if you're a franchisor assessing, who is supporting your franchisees. For me, the traits that I had, I think, or not, I don't know if it's traits, but things that I figured out were that if I would show some vulnerability and humility, that yes, I know the product and I know I'm customer service. I can teach you that. I can teach your staff that, all that. So I can work hard, but I don't know what it's actually like to be you. So tell me what your real challenges are, and I'll do my best to either help you with them or find out how I can help you with them. So I think in that role, one of the things that works is it's that vulnerability, that authenticity, just being human. And then And then the real hard work was a key for me. When I worked hard, then they couldn't fault me for that. They were like, well, she's here for 12 hours, so we can't really, like I remember Ed sitting with franchisees when they were first, we were doing the first openings, and the company, or the concept is a big walk-in freezer. So just if you picture at the grocery store where you'd go get ice cream or all the frozen foods, it was like 16 to 18 doors of frozen food, and we would be selling that over a retail sales counter because we needed to be able to explain to people what the product was, because of course it wasn't as common as it is now.
Yeah.
So this big freezer we'd be getting $30,000 or $40,000. I don't know what that equals in pounds. Canadian dollars, not American, to be clear.
£20,000, maybe something like that, as a guess. Probably about the same nowadays, though. The pound's terrible.
Well, and I think either way, it was like this big delivery of product was coming. And I remember sitting with the franchisee, we turned the freezer on, and we knew that the delivery was coming like the next day or the day later. And they had invested this $30,000, $40,000 or 20,000 pounds, and the freezer wouldn't be getting cold. And we'd be like sitting there waiting, or the product was already in the freezer and the freezer was going warmer, and sitting there with them. And while I could have left and said, like, you're the owner, bye, what I learned was like sitting there with them till 11, 12 at night. And they were tired. They'd be like crying or yelling at me or stressed or whatever. But being there by their side really helped with the dynamic in that role.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, and I think that dedication is probably found more in franchising than it is anywhere else. Strangely enough, even from the employees of franchisors, I found, it's weird. I guess it's because you've got that emotional attachment to the franchisees. They've put their life on the line. In many ways, their savings. So it makes you want to help them more, I think. So. Yeah, it forms like a really interesting relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is such a people business, right? Like I grew up with it, so I didn't realize until I got away from it a little bit and out of it. But what we did really well when I reflected on that, what did we do that helped us get to almost 500 locations? I didn't realize that is as big of a deal as it is at the time, because I just grew up in it. But it really came down to that commitment to the people.
Yeah, awesome. So, what happened after you built your franchise, basically, or built your business up? What was the next step, and what led you to that decision?
Mm-hmm. Well, so. Once we started having the kids. We have two children. They're now children. They're 18 and 20, so that's a little while ago. But when we had them, I slowly sort of stepped away from the business and worked from the background, worked from home, supporting my husband. And we eventually sold one of the stores and ran just the two for the remaining years, so that he could really be hands-on in the business and I could figure out my next step. So once my kids were getting a little bit older, I was feeling restless and wanting to, do something new. And this is the part I also hope this sheds light on or puts light at the end of the tunnel for listeners that are feeling stuck, especially if they're thinking of becoming a franchisee and they're not sure what to do. But I felt very insecure and unsure of like what were my talents that I could use. I just remember thinking like, I want to get a new job. I want to get a job, or I want to go do something new. I don't know what kind of business I would start, but who would hire me I'm just a mom. This is how I felt. Like, I'm just a mom and I'm a franchisee of a business that my dad founded. People are going to see that as far as the franchise side. Oh, it's a franchise. So that's easier than being a starting your own business. This is what was in my head. And B, it's her own family's business. Like, it's not even like she went and figured this out. And then C, being a mom, I felt so insecure. So what I did actually is I hired a career coach. I didn't just think, I'll just solve this. Like, I spent time networking and things, but in my inbox, one of my friends had become a career coach, and I was like, it hit me. I'm like, why don't I talk to her? So I did some coaching with her to tap into like, what were my uncovered, skills and traits, and how could I use what I learned over the years? And I actually went and started networking in my local business community in the tech. There's a vibrant tech community. And I thought, well, maybe I can help them with the business development side of things. So I would try to hide my backstory because I was trying to get away from retail. I was trying to get away from franchising. I didn't want people to like, oh, your dad, like, I thought that was going to have a target on my back. But in the end, what was funny is people would say, wait a minute. Like when it would come out that my dad is the founder of M&M, they would say, your dad's the founder of M&M. You must know something about franchising. I'm trying to franchise my business. Or my friend started franchising and they have 4 franchisees and 3 of them hate them and 1 of them likes them. And what do they do? So I started meeting with people, and this leads to where I'm at now. I started meeting with people and realizing, like, if I learn what they need, what they don't know, I can try to figure out if I can help them. And again, when I reflected on what made us successful and what I learned, especially those years in the field, it all came back to that what is so unique about franchising is that franchisee-franchisor relationship. What can I help people with around that? So that was my passion right from the beginning, was like, I want to help people understand the importance of that and how to be good at that. But in going out and working with brands, what started happening was that they would need, I would go in and see that, okay, you've got maybe 10 franchisees, 8 of them are not really a good fit. So I need to teach you how to find the right franchisees. How do you vet them? How do you take them through the process? So I went, all in on that, and was working with a lot of emerging brands, but have now, just kind of fast forwarding over the past 6 years, really been able to hone in on this field coaching side. So now what I do is I've got a company with we're a team of 9, and we've got advisors. I've got people doing the advising on my team because, quite frankly, they're better than I am at it. So, but we advise people on how to everything kind of through the field, how to hire field coaches, how to level up your field coaches, how to put in the coaching framework for franchisees that are going to enable them to be more successful. So I'll pause there. There's a lot more to it, but that is what we're doing now.
But when you look at it, it makes total sense that you're doing that, right? But I completely understand where you're coming from, thinking, how is everybody else going to view me? So before I joined Expense Reduction Analyst, the franchise brand that I worked for about 4 years, I knew I wanted to get into the marketing space, and I remember, educating myself while I was in recruitment, so completely different kind of spheres. And I thought, do you know what? I can't find a job because I'm branded as a recruiter. I'm going to set up my own business. But the more I thought about it, the more I kind of just sort of pushed myself back into the corner where I thought, well, it's impossible for me to do it, because they're going to look at my CV and go, he's an ex-recruiter. Yeah. He's just sitting at home doing this. He is, not got the experience. And I was thinking, how can I compete against these other brands that have got all this experience? And it's a rubbish place to be, because you just have this, massive weight on your shoulders because you're in a place that you're not enjoying. That was, I was employed in a role I didn't love, and there must be so many other people out there feeling the same. But
that's what the moral of this part of the story is, that I hope that people can realize that you can reinvent yourself. You can change your direction, you can change your path, and it comes down to getting clear. This is like, whether it's, you hire a career coach or whatever you do, you take personality assessments or whatever it is, behavioral things, but getting clear on what makes you tick, what is going to motivate you to get up in the morning, and figuring out, and again, I make it sound like it's easy. I spent a lot of time and energy going out and networking and asking people in my network what they saw. Like I'm not diminishing how much work it is, but in doing that work, it enabled me to get really clear. And I know and the funny thing is, it does sound kind of obvious that, like, and I actually had people, when I first started this networking to try to figure out my next steps, I had people saying, why don't you go and like consult with franchise companies? And I was like, well, I
What does
don't know
that
what I
mean?
know. Yeah.
Yeah, what does consult mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea. Well, I didn't know what they needed. And so it's like I needed to go through this journey of discovery to get to the point where it was something I was bought into. Maybe I was creating buy-in for myself. And I think, yeah, anybody that's feeling in any way stuck or not motivated, the world is different now. You don't go do a 30-year career like most people don't, right? So there's so many options out there, and it's so much more fun when you're tapping into your superpowers, I like to call them, and your purpose. So I'm so blessed because the background that I have. I think we all have a background that we can figure out how to leverage, right? But I'm very blessed. I recognize to have grown up in that environment where, I got to be a part of a lot. I was at the kitchen table when my mom and dad were talking about what was working, what wasn't. So I think anybody though can look back and probably pull things out of the past that you can use in your current situation.
I think that's there's another good bit of advice in there as well, though, that you mentioned about just networking with the people in the industry that you're maybe interested in. I guess I've been doing that with this podcast. I've met lots of owners of successful businesses that are so successful they've then gone on to franchised, right? And the amount that I've just learned from being around them and sort of tapping into what they think is needed in the marketplace, it gave me the confidence to go self-employed. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years before I found franchising, I could have done with franchising right then. But now being around those people in that industry, it gave me the confidence to take a step forward. So I think that's something really interesting and important that, people should just think about doing. And I know it's difficult. Like, where do you go? Yeah. Get on LinkedIn, go to networking events, wherever you can, just start chatting to people. I think's really good advice.
I have a tip. One of the things that my career coach had me do that was super helpful, and I think this is probably good for anybody, whatever you're doing, whether you're trying to change or not, is she had me go out to my network and ask 5 to 10 people in my network, what do you see as my top skills or things like my superpowers or things I'm good at? And it was asking people everything from everybody from my own family, a couple family members, to a good friend, to past coworkers, to somebody I'd done volunteer work with, like a real kind of random sample. And that's where, you start to go, oh, first of all, it's confidence building to hear that. Don't ask them for your weaknesses or areas of opportunity. We'll worry about that later. But when you hear people say you're really good at this thing, you're like, oh, really? I didn't realize you see that in me. And then you take that all, and then when you look at the opportunities, you start to go, does this match with that? And then also doing, like I said, behavioral assessments or things, and just looking at does that match with these things that you could do? But yeah, just, you know what? Another thing is getting out there, like you said, networking, LinkedIn, these podcasts that you're doing is so brilliant because you are getting to build relationships with people that you wouldn't otherwise have. Look at us sitting here right now, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, it's taking these small steps. It's like we have a core value at my company, AC Inc., of action equals growth. And it means nothing ever got done sitting around thinking about it. When I was starting to figure out my business, I was doing a lot of research on the laptop and everything. And I heard that line actually, that, nothing got done sitting around thinking about it or something like that. And I thought, what can I do? And that's where it was the going out, the networking, the telling my story, the telling what I'm looking for. And the universe threw it in front of me. It was so helpful.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I know there's some franchisors out there that listen to this podcast as well. So I think it'd be useful for them to know a little bit more about what it is that you do to help brands, and what kind of franchise brands you tend to work with. Because there's one or two franchisees and people are quite comfortable with that, and there's other brands that have got hundreds that are based around the world, right? So there's the whole world of opportunity for you, I guess. But are you kind of focusing in on any particular areas? Or where's your service most impactful, I guess?
Okay, I got I'm very clear on this one right now. I could change over time. Everything's always changing, but So, well, first of all, what I'll say is we're testing out this. We're saying we're the field coach guys. This is new. We're just like trying this out. So we'll see how this lands. But what we do again is we go in and we look at what you're doing in the field, just to reiterate this to make sure we got this. So we go and we look at like who is supporting the franchisees. Do they have the right DNA? Do they need some coaching? And what are they doing? Like, what is the framework? What's the cadence of how often that they're having touch points with franchisees? We're really big on proactive coaching. We see a lot of brands doing more reactive support, like hotline. Oh, they call us if they need us. They can call us anytime. We've got great online training content. We give them the marketing graphics. We go out and visit them once a year. All these things. That's reactive, like hotline support. What we help the field coaches and the franchisors implement is this framework where we're going to start and we're going to ask the franchisees, what are your 10-year goals? From there, let's reverse engineer down like, okay, 3 years, 1 year. If you want to be here in 1 year, let's get clear on the action steps you want to take. So we're creating buy-in, with the field coaches creating buy-in with the franchisee because it's their own goals and all reverse engineered. So what we've found to be our right now, the biggest area of opportunity, if I put it, that doesn't sound great because it sounds like it's all about us, but where we're seeing the most need is franchisors from about 25 to about 130 units are really needing help with getting that person either in place or improving their coaching framework or leveling up their franchise field coaches. So if a franchisor is listening to this, I recommend you take an assessment. Think about like, what are you currently doing to proactively coach franchisees to success? I know the number one objection we get, or not objection as in like, I don't want to do this, but the roadblock people feel is resources. They're like, how do I, as a franchisor, I can't afford this. I don't know where I can find this in the budget, but the number one driver of franchise company growth is happy and profitable franchisees. And who is it that helps them get profitable and happy? The person supporting them in the field. So why wouldn't you invest? Like, it's the ROI of this is pretty direct, that if you invest in the people that are supporting, and like you said earlier, often the franchisee's got someone younger than them coming in, there's no credibility there. That's a mistake. Like, if that person could level up that franchisee, then it's more than worth the investment. So that's our sort of sweet spot right now. We're finding 30 to 130, or 25-ish to 125 units. Anybody over that, we're also finding that they need professional development for their field coaches. And so one of the things we do is we have a field coach roundtable we run weekly, where we bring the field coaches together to learn from each other, because we believe so much in franchising. We leverage the collective wisdom of the group, right? Franchisees learn from each other. Let's get the field coaches learning from each other. So we talk about things like leadership skills. We talk about, how do you get a franchisee to care about their KPIs? How do you get a franchisee out in the community, growing their business? How do you just get them out of working in the business to work on the business? These are all the kinds of topics we talk about when we do professional development for field coaches.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I think actually this might be something to help you, or a different angle for you to think of, is a franchisee might have invested in a model to follow, but they probably still have an amount of pride within them as well, right? And they probably aren't going to go to not all of them are going to go to the franchisor and say, hey, look, I need a bit more support, right? So they may have a problem, but they'll just sit on it because they don't want to be seen to be the unsuccessful franchisee, right? So by doing reactive support, you're probably missing like holes in areas where you could support them, if you see what I mean. I think that makes sense. But
no,
by
absolutely
doing the proactive piece, you're making sure that there's no gaps in opportunity to improve the franchisee's business. And so I think that's really important. And actually thinking about it from a prospective franchisee's perspective, that's a mouthful to say, I think I think if I was sitting there thinking, am I going to invest in this brand? I'd probably look for somebody who was going to do that proactive coaching. I think I don't think I want a brand where I have to chase them all the time. I want them to make sure I'm good.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, when you go to your family physician, your GP, and you get a full physical. It's like, let's look for the problem before it becomes a problem. Or I don't know if in England you have those little bumps on the side of the road that keep you from going off into the ditch.
Yeah.
Okay. I figured you probably do, especially, I think the driving is a little crazier, right? In London anyway, not overall in England, but so I hope they have those. But we think of it like, we're going to keep you, we're going to, those little bumps are so we catch you before you go off. Like proactive coaching enables us to catch you before you go off. Or it's like taking the vitals, right? And yeah, now I'll tell you this because this is kind of interesting. The last I heard this stat, it may have changed just as a disclaimer, but tutor doctor or tutor doctor.
that is not a good English accent. You got to work on that.
I had to throw that in there because as I told you when we were first talking about this, I was like, are people going to think I talk funny? And then I talked about my COO on my team who is British, from Wolverhampton, and I asked him what his friends back home think, and he said that they say he sounds like a Yankee. Meanwhile, he's a Canadian Brit. I don't know. Anyway, so tutor doctor. The reason I made that joke is because Tim Morris, who of course, Symphony, one of your awesome sponsors,
the podcast,
give him a little plug, a little shout out here. Tim's daughter, Michelle, works for Tutor Doctor, and when she says it, she sounds so proper, teacher. I'm not saying it right.
I don't know how I'm going to say it because I don't think I'll sound that posh. Tutor doctor.
I want to see it. Yeah, posh is the right word.
Tutor doctor.
So I hope. There you go. This sounds so much better than tutor doctor. But anyway, tutor doctor. So tutor doctor has franchises globally. They've got about 700 territories as far as I know. And they offer this proactive coaching as an option. So you don't pay any more, but if you decide to take us up on it, and this also helps with that roadblock of resources like, well, how would I do that? I can't afford that. Well, in Tutor Doctor, if I got this right, about 30% of the franchisees engage with the proactive coaching. And so it's a choice. So those franchisees, if they commit, they want it, they want this 10-year goal, they want to work with the coach, then the coach will commit to working with them and hold them accountable to their goals. Those franchisees, the last I heard, this might have changed, are on average growing 30% more than the franchisees that are not using proactive coaching.
Wow, that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And then another, I won't give a stat on this. I don't have a stat right handy, but another thing is because we have this expertise and two of the people on my team are former top performing multi-unit franchisees. So they're coaching our field coaches now, and they're coaching our franchisors under my, we've got a playbook that we use. And we do have franchisees that hire us directly. And those franchisees that are willing to invest directly to get even like neutral, proactive, very custom coaching, those franchisees, we're seeing a lot of growth. We have one system. I'm sure it's okay. Oxford Learning, actually a competitor of Tutor Doctor, that we're working with. And I know that they had franchisees that had hired us directly. And the president of the company came to us and said, what are you doing? I want more of that. Can you do an audit? Like and can you come in and work with us? And she's now brought us in as basically fractional field coaches for their franchisees. And they've got about 150 franchisees. So my point there is there's something to be said about proper proactive coaching. And if you're not, I like to say, we help you unlock the hidden profitability in your business. There's this profitability that's not being tapped into because franchisees are not being coached. People think, well, I'm going to go get money by selling more franchises. But what if you stopped and looked at it's called operational leverage. It's if you could get more operational leverage is when, maybe you've heard this term, I'll say it for the listeners, when you can ramp up the franchisee performance and get more out of the franchisee that's going to drop right to the bottom line because of royalties. Now you're winning. So that's what we are helping franchisors and franchisees with.
Awesome. Well, Angela, I'm getting conscious of the time here, and I've got a few more questions that I want to ask
It's
you.
almost happy hour in your world, isn't it? It's like, I gotta go. It's happy hour soon.
It depends what time you think happy hour is. I mean, it's coming up to 5 o'clock, so it's already 1 hour past it. So I've probably missed it. I'm only joking. But yeah, so I wanted to find out from you, Angela, what funny, strange, or weird stories have you had from your career? Maybe beyond Kelly Kabob.
Yeah, I know. I've already told you all the funny and weird stories. So I thought about this because I knew you. I was pretty sure you were going to ask me this, and I was like, I don't know. I can't. It's weird that I can't think of like a story. But then I thought of something that might be fun. So I'm going to say about 5 or so years ago, I was getting ready to leave my house. I think my husband was dropping me off at the airport with my young daughter in the car, and when I was going to Philadelphia, so Canadian going, to the US. It was my first, maybe it was 6 years ago, my first time going to an unknown city in the US by myself to go speak on a panel. They had asked me, because I was still a franchisee, to speak on a panel on unit economics. And secretly, we didn't use that term, unit economics, first of all. So I like at M&M, like I wasn't out in the world of what people like the slang and all that, or not that it's slang, but that sort of terminology. So I had to go ask people, what are unit? I said yes, and then I went and asked people in my network of franchising, what are unit economics? And then I was, okay, I get it. I knew what it was once but basically the economics of each unit. So I was nervous. I was excited, but I was a little nervous because going down to the U.S., so I'm going to speak on this panel and answer things about what people ask me. So my daughter said, Mom, you got this. Go be awesome. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. So then for some reason, I started sort of saying that like to people, yeah, just go be awesome. So when a couple years ago is when I just actually relaunched this business, because in between the 6 or so years, I had gone and taken a job. So that's another story for another day. But when I started to grow, my now COO, when he was joining my team, this is Stephen Inglefield from Wolverhampton. He, being British, I got to tie this in here. Yeah. He was like, he's taught me about the difference, right? And he's like, go be awesome is not something I would say. Like, I love your energy. I love what you're doing here. But like, if I join your team, do I have to be like, rah, go be awesome? And I was like, no, it's fine. Like he had so many good skills and we had really good connection. And he said, I'd be more likely to say, don't be shitty or don't be shitty. And I was like, don't be shitty. And he's like, well, yeah, don't be shitty. He said, Ange, it's so much easier to achieve. Like, go be awesome. You're expecting a lot out of people. Like, I feel like I just want to try to at least not be shitty. I feel like I'm winning. So
that's the British mentality, though, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah, compared to the American one, completely.
So for the people that are watching this, I know more people are probably listening, but I'll describe this. But I'm going to hold up my business card. So my business card is bright red, and it says "Go be awesome" on. Oh, there's a phone number there, but it says "Go be awesome" on the back. And then Stevens is black, and it has his name. Guess what it says on the back?
Yeah, don't be shitty.
Don't be shitty. Yeah, so we love it because we were just at the the Emerging Franchisor Conference in Nashville together, and it's like the yin and the yang or whatever. Like we really play off each other well. But I never knew when he said that it would become a little bit kind of almost part of the brand. Like people know him as the "Don't be shitty" guy.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and it's taking the personal brand, which, if you're in and around the LinkedIn kind of world, that's constantly going around from all these coaches that are saying, make sure you're, leveraging your personal brand. You've brought that into the kind of physical world, though, with your cards. That's an awesome idea. I love it. I'm trying to think what my tagline would be, and I think someone who I've just recently recorded a completely different podcast series with should say it's all whatever, because that's how I finish almost every sentence. And,
that's awesome.
It's a horrible tick that I'm trying to get rid of, but yeah,
or whatever. Something a little better. It's the good thing about having a line like that is at the end of a podcast or the end of anything. When I'm shutting down a virtual roundtable, I say, "Okay, everybody, bye. Go be awesome," and then click. Like it's sort of that we're done.
Yeah.
So I'll challenge you, Ed, to think about that, and maybe I'll help you with that.
I've got a few others. So I use awesome a lot for a Brit. really, in my emails and things like that with people, because I think it helps to stand out a little bit. But I tend to end everything with "have a good one." That's
Oh,
it.
that's okay. But you
Yeah,
got one. At least you have
so you
something.
said that's okay. That wasn't that exciting. That
Not
wasn't like
awesome.
that's.
Yeah. It's not awesome, but it's good. It's better than not having one. It's not shitty. It's not shitty. You're like Steven's level, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, and I'm not wearing bright colours either. I'm in a dark shirt,
yeah,
So
where's your
yeah,
head? Yeah.
excellent. So my next question then is, what's been the proudest or most inspiring moment for you?
I think if I could say just sort of more broad than a moment,
Yeah, please
I
do.
would say, yeah, I'm and I'm hoping this comes across humbly and in a way that inspires people, but to have figured out my purpose and been able to use that to build a company based on the legacy of the past life that I like, my past, I guess. And so I hope I want that to come across humbly, because I don't want it to seem unachievable, to be able to do that. But I think that would be it. Like, just really being able to get clear on what we're doing, and to have a team of 9. And I am crazy proud of my team. I guess that's something I'm just blown away when I go to conferences and people tell me, "Oh, everybody I've met on your team is awesome," or and they're not shitty. But to have been able to attract amazing people that are aligned on our mission, like, we are crazy aligned. We live and breathe by our core values. You could ask any member of our team to recite at least a few of them, and they would just bang them off. I guess that's probably my proudest moment.
You've made that happen, right? And I think we're terrible at patting ourselves on the back, right? Every single person, they always look at the negatives in themselves rather than the positives. So I think that's a really great thing to be proud of, is to say, yeah, I actually did something. I actually took action. I made it happen. I think that's awesome.
Well, and I have a little quick line on that I heard once, and sorry about that. One that that by shining a light on myself, I give permission to others to do the same.
Yeah.
And hopefully inspire others to do the same as well. So it's all meant to be influential and helping others. I hope that comes across.
Yeah, I think it's great. Fantastic. So my last question then is, if you were to speak to somebody who's about to invest in a franchise, or somebody who's thinking about investing in a franchise, and you're only allowed to give them one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
I would encourage them to be really introspective and, knowing themselves. So what I mean by that is getting really clear, like what I had to do to get to the point I'm at with this business. Really get clear. Don't be careful that you don't overlook the traits that you have to ensure that you are going to be able to be successful as a franchisee. Because if you sort of gloss over the idea that maybe when you're talking to the franchisor and you're looking at what the traits are to be successful, and one of them is definitely being community oriented, in my strong opinion. If you hate the idea of going out into your community, then you're not going to be successful. So don't become a franchisee, or become a franchisee with a plan on how you're going to deal with that, so that you can be successful. So I think it's really introspective. I have a podcast, one of my podcast episodes, we talk about the DNA of a high performing franchisee, like 10 traits, around the wheel kind of, that they need to have. And I think just really knowing that is what's going to help you be successful.
Yeah.
Don't pretend.
Yeah, I think
it won't work out in the end.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I mean, working in the recruitment world, I learned that one a long time ago, but never did it myself until about 5-6 years ago now. But it's a really important thing to do, because you start to see the opportunities much clearer for what they are, whether they're a good match for you or not. It's not a very good analogy, but I think of it like a puzzle piece, right? If you know what shape you are, you know what slot you're going to fit into, right? So, yeah, because we're not all rounders, right? Some people are better at sales, some people are better at numbers. And so finding the
And
brand
that's
that's going to
okay.
support, and that's okay. But finding the right franchise brand that matches and can support you in areas that you don't have specific skill sets in, I think is really important. So
that's a key.
So yeah, it's fantastic. Well, Angela, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. In fact, it's been awesome. So thank you very much for...
I'm so glad you said it was just not shitty.
Yeah, I should have done. It was such a not shitty episode. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and hoping to see you in the UK one day.
Thank you. This has been an amazing start to my day. So I'm on fire. It's a good way to start. Thank you, Ed.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Go be awesome.
Go be awesome. You nearly forgot.